see the number. Hello.
Hi, everyone. Seeing some familiar faces. Let's see who's. So if you're live, just drop a note in the chat and say who you are and where you're joining us from. That's always fun.
We have Taryn here, Christy, Jamie.
Yeah. Hi, Christy. It's always nice to see your face. I always have to give a shout out to Christy. She runs an awesome business, kind of similar to ours, and just does wonderful work. So.
Well, no, you're the best. Yeah.
So this is our monthly. I guess this is a thing we do every month now, Kath.
It's our new thing. Sort of new. We just started doing it.
We started it. When did we do it first? We did it in July.
In July, yeah. So Sarah signed up for this thing. Oh, hi, hello, Angela. Yeah, she signed up for Crowdcast, which is this platform you're on right now, and we're like. And she's like, let's do an AMA. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, we signed up for it to do our member workshops because it's just a lot more user-friendly than Zoom for a whole bunch of reasons. And I have a blog post about that.
Since we're talking about business blogging?
Yeah, and so I was like, well, we have extra hours. We should use them because I like to get maximum value out of everything. I was like, let's just do like a free, like casual AMA this month and see if people are interested. And then it just kind of has snowballed. So now we're like picking themes each month.
We're like, what should we talk about?
But it's really fun. This month we're going to just be answering any questions you have about business blogging, which is I would say is one of my favorite topics. And I know Kath is one of yours. Because we're super cool people.
And Christy's favorite topic too. Christy does a great blog. Topic. Yeah.
There's no like presentation. If you haven't been, I know a lot of you have been to these before, but some of you are new. There's no like presentation or pitch or anything like that. It really is a chance for you to get questions answered. If you don't have questions, we will make up questions.
Yes.
So
or questions that our clients have asked us. And
yeah.
So, for example, one of the big questions, we do have a question in here from Christy, actually.
We'll get to it.
Oh, okay, we'll save that one for after, yeah. No, the big one I hear all the time is, I don't have time to blog, and I'm overwhelmed by blogging. Like, it's, what do I blog about?
Yeah, so if you have questions about that kind of thing, if you have questions about how do I pick a topic, if you have questions, anything like that, that you are dying to know, there's a little button that says ask a question, and just drop your question in there. And if you sort of have follow-ups based on any answers or any other questions you hear about, just drop that in the chat and we'll follow up. Kath, I think, it's funny. I don't think I've ever asked you, what is your history with blogging? Like, did it start with the website you have now, or does it have a longer history than that? I can't believe I've ever asked you this.
No, actually, I was blogging, and I'm not going to say the name because I probably wrote silly things, but I just, back in the 2000s, I was, overseas and traveling a lot, so I blogged. And I think those blogs are long gone now.
So, like, you kind of had a personal blog?
Yeah, like a personal blog. So I always thought of blogging as sort of just like online diary, writing your experiences. So I wrote some random, like literally the term random, random stuff. And then, so when I started doing Squarespace websites and before I met you, I started just writing tutorials on how to do stuff because I'm also a teacher, like in real life.
And so you couldn't not teach?
I couldn't not teach. So I'm like, okay, I have a website on, like I was sort of doing VA type work for Squarespace and helping people set stuff up. And so I just started blogging about Squarespace. I didn't really have a plan. It was just like, oh, I need a blog. And so I just started writing about what I did and how I did things.
And then stuff started happening.
And then stuff started happening. And I think when we met, because we met on Instagram, if anyone's like watching, Sarah had a job wanted ad and she looked nice. So I reached out to her. Yeah. And I think you told me you read a couple of my blog posts and you were like, oh, she knows what she's doing. So she gave me an offer.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
So in that sense, in terms of business blogging, and look at the collaboration now, but like, having a blog I don't think it had any traffic. I wasn't even measuring for traffic back then. But it helped me get work because I had put it out there.
Right, because you sort of proved that you knew your stuff.
I knew my stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do remember checking you out because I was like, oh, okay, clearly she obviously knows how to do this. She's not going to, kind of fake it.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember you saying, because I remember it stood out, you said, yeah, that blog post about the spacer block and using the spacer block to lay stuff out.
That. It's like the answer is the spacer block.
So there you go. That's a good enough reason to blog. It will make someone, maybe if you're using your blog more as a, almost like a resume, because at that time, maybe my website was more of a resume, if you think about it. Then maybe someone who's hiring a VA or hiring you, wants to hire you for a kind of more of a job type thing. It shows that you know what you're doing.
I used to teach a class at a local college that was a web design class, but really most everyone's assignment was I had them actually design like a personal blog, because I always feel like that's a really good, like you're kind of going to have your basic pages, like you're going to have a homepage, you're going to have a blog, you're going to have a contact page, you're going to have a bio. Like that's a really good, like if you've never designed a website before, that's a really good starter. And then what I would really encourage them to do is actually use the thing that they built in the class to kind of blog about whatever they were interested in. And one of the gals in my class that I taught one time, she had, this was when the economy just cratered about 11 years ago.
Oh, sorry, 11 years ago.
About 11 years ago. And she was a recent college graduate and had, was so frustrated she could not get an interview. And so her parents actually paid for her to take this class because she had a marketing background but she didn't have website background. So she started blogging on this blog that she set up, and she applied for kind of a reach sort of job that was like a content manager sort of job. Right. Like a couple months after she'd started this website that she was blogging on, she was writing about running and things like that. And she applied for a job at a very large sports company located in our region, and they hired her for honestly a job that she was underqualified for because of her blog. Like they literally told her, we were so impressed that you had an active blog and like you could clearly talk about like athletics, because she was just talking about her runs. Like it was not a very it was like but it was something she was doing kind of to keep herself. You know how it is if you're looking for an opportunity and you can't find it. And I always remember that because it was such a neat, she was blogging about her runs. And then when she applied for that job, it was something that they looked at and they were so impressed that she knew how to write good content. And it was like, dang, like, I wonder what she's doing now, actually.
If you're here.
So it's kind of interesting how that happens. My whole story is I had a really boring job a million years ago, like 2006, 2007.
Yeah.
And I was really bored because it was really easy. And I started a blog about my sewing projects. I had managed a website before, so I kind of had the tech skills, but I started blogging about I knew how to build a WordPress site and started blogging about my sewing projects. And then I got laid off, as everyone did in 2008. And I actually started this business, but it was nowhere near full time. And
that's how it starts, right?
Yeah. And so I was sort of doing it, like trying to find stuff where I could, still writing my sewing blog. And I also did another sort of blog that lived for a short period of time that was documenting craft projects around the 2008 election.
That would be so cool.
And the archive still exists. And I did that. I was doing those two things, and I got hired in a part-time role for a trade association in the sewing industry.
Because of your blog.
Yeah, and my job was the content management. So again, it's like kind of funny. And then it just I was able to leave that after a couple of years because I was really so good at kind of that websites, but content too thing. And at that time, that wasn't a thing that people talked about a lot. Now it's like everyone talks about it. So again, I would say that my blog really catapulted this actual business, even though it wasn't at that time obviously was not about my business. And now I actually do generally have a plan for my business blog.
Right. Yes.
But again, I always think it's like, there's something like it's really powerful in putting content and ideas out in the world. And I know that sounds a little bit woo-woo, but it doesn't take, especially those of you who work with clients one-on-one, like how many clients do you actually need every month? It's not that many. And if you can connect with a handful of people because your message is really clear and you have a strong point of view, that's super powerful.
Yeah.
It like kind of gives me goosebumps, honestly. When someone tells me like, oh, so when someone read my blog and they signed up for a, ongoing retainer, and I'm like, yes, because that means that they really got what you were saying.
Actually, I worked with a realtor. We were doing workshops here, and she started blogging quite seriously, and she got a huge client, not someone just buying a house, but buying several properties.
Oh, nice.
He had read one of her blog posts that really impressed him.
Yeah, so it just takes one.
It can work magic. It can work magic.
And the other side of it that people also forget is that it can also bring in, if you have, say, low-cost info products, so, ebooks or little webinars, things like that, those can be really good direct sales to those low-cost products. Mm-hmm. Blog posts can also serve as de facto sort of public lead magnets to get people to sign up for your mailing list, which in our YouTube channel, there's an Ask Me Anything About email marketing that if you didn't get a chance to watch that, I do recommend. I think we had some really good questions in that one. But that's something I just really encourage people to do. It kind of goes hand in hand with the blog.
Yeah. It actually works really nicely together.
Yeah.
I see so Christy just wrote, I see huge conversions from blog readers to mailing list signups. Me too.
Yes.
And especially now this year, I started taking it more seriously. Sarah was like, you got to take this more seriously.
I did. We actually did a strategy session together.
We had a strategy session.
I literally made her change some stuff while I watched.
Overnight. Boom. So it's yay. And we blog about similar topics, Christy. So it's amazing how just making those little changes and shifting sort of what I write about has made a big difference.
One of the changes I made recently was literally the positioning of my sign up box on my blog posts. I changed where it sits. Mm-hmm. And I've seen it. I think since I did that a couple weeks ago, I've had 63 signups from that form.
Alone.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just from changing where it sits in my blog post.
Okay, I'm going to go.
So, there's a lot of sort of interesting, you can do a lot to make those blog posts. Like sometimes people are like, well, I'm just shouting into the void. And it's like, are you though? Are you?
Are you really? I mean, I guess if you're only focused on Google, like people finding you on Google and not using your blog, I should change that. That sounds negative, but you think of your blog as not just being found googly wise, but also, as an admin.
I do. I use it. I mean, when I think of all the ways I use it, yes, I use it to bring in traffic. Obviously that's in a competitive industry, it's really important to use that to continue to be found in Google. Yes, very important. Getting found in Google is not an end goal. It's a beginning. Hill I will die on. I have 87 hills I'll die on.
You have a lot of hills.
A lot of them. But it can be a great tool for conversion optimization. So getting people on that mailing list to build a relationship with you so you can have sort of a relationship first marketing strategy. 3, amazing resource for your potential or existing clients. Because I will tell you, 95% of the questions that I get from potential leads, I can say, you know what, I have a blog post about that. I'm going to send that to you after we're done talking.
Yeah. Here we go.
And it's great just because, one, you don't have to answer a complicated question when you're on a quick get to know you call. 2, it proves that you know your stuff. 3, it gives you a subject of conversation to follow up with them on.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, hey, wanted to see if there's any way I can help you. So there's these multiple ways you can make that content work for you. Yeah. And so I really think that sort of triple duty of your content is super, super, super important.
And I'll just add one more. I think it makes it so much
easier. Anyway, I can talk about this forever. Oh my goodness. I've been blathering for a long time.
No, I also think it makes it easier for posting on social media. Like if you're just posting to send to a service page all the time, then it makes it really hard to post on social media. But now you have somewhere to send people to, oh, hey, I wrote a blog post, go check it out. And then you can do it next month, same blog post, right? Like people forget on social media.
Yeah. So like I think Christy does an awesome job. We should just like have Christy
Christy,
come do our work for us.
You can do
Christy
our AMA for us.
Christy does an awesome job with that on social media, which is not something I'm really awesome at.
No,
but Christy is really good. Whenever she has a great new blog post, she really makes sure that it gets. That's how I always see Christy has a new blog post. It's because I follow her on Instagram, and she does a really good job of making it super. Missing letter works for me. I always forget to schedule my Instagram posts.
Yeah,
Christy said she uses missing letter, and
I know I forget to schedule missing letter. I know it does it automatically, but it's so.
I have a team member who's supposed to be doing my missing letter, but that team member has not been doing it, and that team member is not Kath. It's
like, this was
third person.
So do we have any questions? I know we have, Christy, we have your question. We're going to save it because it's kind of an SEO Squarespace one. We are going to answer that, but are there any questions about, blogging or blog topics, or, if you're
how do I get started?
Yeah, how do I get started?
Right. Yeah. Drop those in. Or we'll just answer Christy's question now. Yeah,
well, let's answer Christy's question. So I'll read it out loud. It is it good practice to hide the category and tag pages from SEO in Squarespace specifically? It seems like when I haven't in the past, it makes Google throw errors. All right, Sarah.
So my default answer is we always hide the category and tag pages in Squarespace for the blog, for anything that uses categories and tags. So if you're a Squarespace user, and I know I can see a lot of you are, the things that use category and tags are the blog, obviously, events, shop, and then if you're on Squarespace 7.0 is the gallery pages. And so there's nuance there, but those are the biggies that use categories and tags. In Squarespace, the shop products. In Squarespace, the issue that happens is that those category and tags, each and every single one of those categories and tags becomes a page. However, it is not a page you can edit or alter or control in any way. So what happens is that goes into your automatically generated sitemap. Again, something you don't have any control over. And that goes into your sitemap. And what happens when Google scans it is it'll see buckets of errors. One of my clients I did an SEO audit for, he had 1,400 errors related to categories and tag pages because he had years of blog posts. And he had duplicate content warnings. He had multiple header ones warnings. He had thin content warnings. I mean, it was like for every single post on his blog, he would have like between 5 and 20 warnings that were like, Google was like, what's happening? Then one of those random tag pages showed up in the site link preview Google search.
Yeah.
And so that created even bigger. So it was showing up when someone would see their business name. It was the first little preview below the site, the business's name. So it created a big old mess. And the simple solution is that there's a way, and Kath dropped the link, and there's a way to hide that. I actually also, if, like on my own site, for example, my site's actually on WordPress these days, and I actually have my category and tag pages in WordPress hidden as well, because I've never bothered to set up templates for them. And so again, I would have some of the similar problems. And so unless you're really going to do the work, even if you're on WordPress, it may benefit you to hide those until you do the work. So it's one of those things that in Squarespace, always do it. In WordPress, just make a decision about whether or not you're going to build individual category and tag templates or pages. And I can't speak to things like Wix, unfortunately, because I just haven't used it enough to be proficient enough to make a recommendation. But I definitely see the SEO impact.
Sarah, can I interrupt you? Your video has disappeared. I don't know if you realize that. Pardon? Oh, there you are. Yay.
I didn't hear you.
Oh, I was just saying your video had disappeared.
Oh, yours had too.
Oh, weird. Okay, we're back. Oops. Oh, good. I'm glad.
So it's just us, Kath. We have another question from Christy. Christy's like our A student.
Another. What length post do you shoot for? I haven't tried to keep track of this, but thinking it would be interesting to see how it affects Rag. I know, Sarah, we've talked about this in the membership, but also like you and I.
We talk about this all the time.
2,000 words is a great old post, but 600 minimum?
It's two. So there's two answers. Regular post is 600 words.
600 words, yeah.
If you're doing a pillar post, and we can talk a little bit about what that means. A pillar post should be about 2,000, which sounds scary, but you can do it.
If you outline it first, like just ask a bunch of questions that you want to answer, like write the questions down that you want to answer. However you lay out the post, if you outline it, you'll be shocked at how quickly
you can fill in the blanks.
It can fill in the blanks. And I always tell people, like, if you're not a writer, or if writing is like, just talk into a microphone, and then transcribe it.
A lot of my content, I am a writer, but a lot of my content, I actually talk into my notes app. I actually use Bear, which is a notes app. I actually talk it into there to get my rough drafts out, just for efficiency's sake, because I'm faster at talking than typing.
And I'm the opposite. I'm faster at typing than talking, and I ramble.
So I'll get all my ideas down and then clean it up. Yeah. Kath, should we define our terms, what I mean by pillar post?
Well, go ahead and start that. I think you wrote a blog post, so I'm going to grab the blog post.
Did I write a blog post about that?
Well, you wait. Pillar post.
I might have written a newsletter about it that's not up on my site yet.
Oh, okay. You've got the ultimate blogging prompt. That's the next. When I typed in pillar post Sarah Moon, you have the workshop replay. Yeah. And then you have the blogging prompt. I'll throw that one in while we're talking. No, sorry, you don't have a pillar post one. Maybe I do. Keep talking.
I should. Yeah, if I don't, I should write one. So, a pillar post is, so if you think of your blog as like a building. Sorry for the metaphor, but pillars make sense for this one.
Yes.
So a pillar post is the primary scaffolding that holds that building up. I'm not a construction professional, so I'm probably using really incorrect language, but it's that primary thing that holds the whole house up. And so you want that to be, it's a big topic. It's a little more general than you typically address. So you'll see a lot of those in the, one of my favorite examples is if you go and Google King Arthur Flowers, Ultimate Guide to Sourdough Baking. That is a perfect example of an excellent, excellent pillar post. And because it breaks down, here's what you need to know. Here's some of the common questions. Here's, process. So this is very here are all the links to all the other things we have about this subject. It's very expansive and exhaustive. So this is not something you sit down and write every week. This is something you really strategically say, I believe I can build my authority online in this subject area, and this is in clear alignment with my mission and my core services. So that's, and so you spend some time. So there's some very specific frameworks that are typically used. How to. So Kath, your site is full of how to's, and there's some pros and cons of that. And we can talk, I think we should talk about that in a minute. Another one is, we always call it the ultimate guide. So that could be the ultimate guide to da-da-da-da-da.
If you Google the ultimate guide to, it's fun to see.
It's fun to see. There's really there's one that's like the ultimate guide to clicker training your dog, the ultimate guide to, starting a small business, the ultimate guide to fermenting pickles. If there is a thing you have ever wanted to learn something about, there is an ultimate guide to it. And there's a very specific framework that goes into that ultimate guide. And it really is meant to be something that is like a big resource. And they can be really good lead magnets. And and really good for building your authority. The other one that's you see less of, but can be extremely effective, especially if you're in a rapidly evolving industry, is the state of X in year. So
yeah,
you see these a lot at the end or the beginning of the year, where it'd be like, say, the state of, brand design.
Websites. Oh, brand design. Yeah.
And those are things that have a really high potential of getting good quality backlinks organically rather than the spammy backlinks.
Right.
So that's another one that can be strategically, if you really want to be like a thought leader or an industry voice, those can be really effective in that for that kind of positioning as well. Yeah. So they can be really useful for people. They're intended to be they are really intended to be kind of the anchor for other more narrow content that's all connected. So your spokes. So in the old school marketing, we used to call that the hub and spoke method of content. Now it's called content clusters. Same difference.
And your pillar is here, and then
your pillar is here, holding all that other stuff up, and then you've got all your other pieces.
The pieces a lot. I don't know.
So all those other pieces can be 600 words. That big anchor should be really about 2,000 or even more. And I know that sounds really scary. There's some debate over whether that pillar should be a blog post or it should be a page on your website. Mm-hmm. I think functionally for you, the person creating the content, it is so much easier to have it be a blog post. Google will slightly value it more, most likely, but it's not guaranteed. So I don't see a really good reason to have it be a page unless you really get ambitious and want it to look super fancy or something.
The other thing is, at least in Squarespace, and I'm sure in others, is if you have it as a blog post, you can pull it into a feed. So on your
you can do different things with it. And that's true on any website platform.
Yeah.
Again, functionally for you, the person who owns the website, is going to be easier for you if you make it a post. So that's why I try not to discount the importance of trying to make online marketing easier for, the business owner who's also the CFO, is also the, is also the CEO, is also the IT manager, is also, so trying to make that marketing manager role a little bit less painful.
Yeah. So how many pillar posts should you have on your website? Is there a number?
I think it's organic. I think ideally it should be, most people have a small handful of core services. So say 3 to 5 core services that they offer that sort of fit naturally into different. And so aligning your pillar posts with those services and your content clusters as a result with those services is a smart strategy. So that's the way I would approach it.
I just asked the question so we can save it for later. Yeah, okay. So, because this is just to let you know, we've been talking a little bit about a new pillar, or a cluster around a pillar post, me and Sarah yesterday.
I'm so upset it took me so long. I popped out at me in our membership workshop yesterday because Kath has this post that's sitting there.
It's number 1 right now for my site. It keeps getting found. I tweaked it quite a bit so that now I am getting signups for it, because before it had what's called a high bounce rate. If you don't know what that is, it means people landed on it and left immediately. So it wasn't answering their questions. So I made some changes to it, and now people are sticking around, reading it, watching the video, and signing up for the newsletter. So that's good.
I'm dropping a link to that post.
Yeah, it was really bad. It was an old post and it was bad. So it needed, and it is actually, I'll be honest, it's not, as a teacher, it's not a satisfying answer for a lot of people because Squarespace doesn't offer pricing tables. So it's a post about pricing tables, and you cannot create a pricing table in Squarespace. They don't have it as a block. So you kind of have to do workarounds, or you need code. So I added a lot of that information in there, But what Sarah said is, like, obviously this is something that people are asking and looking for answers. Also with your clients, and you've had to answer these questions. It's, I should probably create a cluster of posts around a pillar post. So that post wouldn't be the pillar.
No,
it would be more of an ultimate guide or something. Yeah. So I need to start thinking about that, because clearly people are finding me for that. I need to start building a bigger series of posts around that that topic that's so popular right now.
Yeah, and I think it's just, I mean, I think what it shows us is that sometimes your analytics can tell you what kind of the things are that are sitting in the back of your mind, back of your visitors' minds, that maybe you don't see, because I have definitely had that experience where I've been like, that's interesting that's something people are Googling. And then I've had to sit back, and that's where I kind of get lecturing, but folks don't trust their guts enough when they start thinking about their visitors. And it's like, well, why are people Googling so much about pricing? Like, why do they want to know about pricing tables? Like, what is it? And if you start kind of thinking through it, like, well, what's going on in the world? There's more people going freelance. There's more people are probably want to have a lot of questions about pricing and, you know, the pros and cons of displaying pricing on their website. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things you can tease out. And it's like, oh, this actually all makes sense. If you kind of use your gut and sort of what you know about humans. But I think we kind of almost get, I'm sorry, I'm going to get on my high horse again. I think we sometimes get a little bit bulldozed that the data has to tell us all the answers when we actually have those answers in our brains.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, well, the data is not saying that people are wondering about all these questions about pricing. It's like, but the data is giving us enough to tip our brains to start thinking about that a little bit more.
Yeah. And it gets beyond the how-to, and it really shows that you care about your readers, right? Like, you're like, okay. I mean, I didn't make that click. I'll say that. But it when you start to think that way, you know, why is this post so popular? And what can you do that shows that you care about your readers, and, you know, that you care about what it is they're struggling with, and that you can probably answer those questions, or at least give them options to think about.
Yeah.
Things to think about, right?
And I also say, you know, I talk about this a lot also, is it also, if you do have something like that, that's more of like this functional how-to kind of thing that's doing well, you know, like, well, crap, that's not going to get me any new clients. It's like, okay, but most of us sitting here have some kind of mission or agenda or what have you. I mean, we should. I don't think there are many people who own like consulting type businesses who are just in it because they're like, they want to be like taking baths and dollars and champagne. I think we actually do want to achieve something, you know, we want to, you know, influence our industry, or, you know, influence like our clients or what have you. That kind of content is an opportunity to weave in your point of view and your agenda to help drop some ideas in people's brains when they may be just, so if that person looking for, well, how do I put a pricing table on my Squarespace site? If that person also sees like, oh, I actually need to think about my pricing strategy, or I need to think about my product ladder, or they're like, oh, okay, I actually need to this person's actually giving me some really good food for thought.
Yeah.
That's a really powerful thing. Yeah.
I'm going to post that in the chat as a reminder for food for thought, because, I know that when I've looked up a how-to, and then I get that answer, I get the how-to answer, but then I also get a why-to, or a have you thought about this as well?
Yeah,
it's
or
like, like maybe some people are going to be like, I need a pricing table, and then they're like, wait a second, maybe I shouldn't be putting my prices on, or maybe you know.
Or maybe they're like, oh, you know, when I think about it, like one of the points of pricing table, I can talk about this particularly because it's such a great example. One of the things with pricing tables is sometimes when you do that work, you'll see like your pricing actually doesn't make sense. And I had this encounter with a client once where I looked, I'm like, these prices sitting next to each other don't make any sense. Like, there's not a logical differentiation. And I told them, and they were like, holy crap, you're right.
Yeah.
And so they went back and revisited their pricing. But that's actually something you can weave into that post, is saying, hey, when you're working on your pricing tables and you see everything together, it may give you some food for thought about your actual the actual pricing. So there's a lot of things you can plunk in there. I think we have another question.
Oh, we do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here it is. The question is, will switching the host from WordPress to Squarespace significantly affect Google ranking, Sarah?
Oh, you know, I get this question a lot. And this is something I have a blog post planned. I have not written it yet because I have a lot of balls in the air. I have like 20 some odd drafts of blog posts right now, which is very shameful, I know. So here is my answer. anytime you do any redesign, most likely you will see a dip in your rankings. That's the short answer. Whether you're redesigning from WordPress to WordPress, WordPress to Squarespace, Squarespace to WordPress, HTML website to Webflow. I mean, there are so many permutations. And so you will likely, no matter what, see somewhat of a dip, simply because it's very, very challenging to exactly replicate the content flow structure from version A of your site to version B of your site. It's just, there's always things you tweak. So there are content changes. So Google sometimes has a little bit of a what is this site about? I'm not sure.
What's going on here?
Yeah. And so that happens, and it's something, it typically recovers relatively quickly if you do the following. So, 1, make sure you have logged, so in a spreadsheet or whatever your preferred way of doing, every single URL on your website before you go to push the button to make changes. So that way you have a record of every URL on your website. And don't forget things that are, like your blog posts. Sometimes your URL structure changes for that. So that's the URL is the thing that after the slash. So it would be /about us. Well, one of the common things I'll see people do is they maybe had a page that was /about us previously, and now it's /the team. Right. So you want to make sure you know what the original was, and then you know what the new one is. So then when you go to do your redesign, you redirect. So in Squarespace, they call that URL mappings for some reason instead of redirections. Why? I don't know. Squarespace likes to use their own language.
I will do that. Squarespace URL redirect.
Yeah. And I have actually, and Christy, I do too. I have a cheat sheet, a little spreadsheet that's old, new, so
and wherever possible, use the same.
Yeah.
Structure.
But if you need to make a change, make sure you redirected it.
Yeah. So here's the redirect email.
You also want to, another thing you want to make sure that you do is that if you have really well-performing pages, so if say you have a services page that just consistently ranks in the top 3 in Google, make sure that you keep not only the URL intact, but you also keep the same content on that page. And that doesn't just mean having the same words. It means also having the same headings. So you want to keep, say, header 1 on your WordPress site as header 1 on your Squarespace site. So really be cognizant of the reality that if you were to say, take that header 1 and make it a header 4, Google will see that as less important, and then that page may permanently drop in rankings. And this is the other thing is, this is all just kind of gleaned from what the patterns are in Google, because they don't tell you all the things.
No.
So this is just kind of this educated guesswork that we do. So just be very cognizant of anything you have that's performing well. Make sure you know what it is and you maintain its integrity. I actually recommend signing up for a service like Moz in that time between the and just keep it for a month or two between starting with that old site, so you get a baseline of knowing what your rankings are. And then for a couple months, if there's anything, Moz will alert you if there's any errors or problems. And that way you can go in and correct them, because these are typically fixable things. The stuff I see when people drop in rankings and they don't rebound, it often is, I didn't keep my headers. I changed my metas. So that's your SEO page. In Squarespace, it's called your SEO page title and your SEO description. So if you're like, oh, you forgot to put in the SEO page title, easy to do in Squarespace just because of where it's located. So things like that. And so they're all fixable problems. Very rarely, the only time I see where people will really crater and not be able to rebound is if they basically change all the content of their website and the whole structure, and it's basically seen like a new site with the same site name. But usually if you do that, you kind of know it because you're changing like your business model, your services. I mean, we've worked with clients where they've done a radical business model shift. And I've told them your rankings are going to tank.
Yeah.
You're going to have to build that back up. And here's how you do it. start blogging, like let's target some fresh keyword. So there's a whole strategy around if you are cognizant of the reality that you're targeting different thing now.
So I have a quick question. I know this isn't quite about blogging, but if someone has a high ranking services page, because I think this has come up with some clients who are, redoing their copy for a page. But if you're number 1 to 3, you shouldn't touch that copy, even if you want to have some cool sounding new headline.
Well, you know what? I mean, here's the other thing. If you have a really high ranking page, but it's no longer in alignment with your business,
yeah, then
what value is that high ranking page bringing you?
True. And that's where
I have had high ranking pages. I have had an old page on my site that did wonderfully. I didn't offer that service anymore. So what happened is I would get inquiries, or I didn't want to do that service anymore because that was before I had the guts to just be like, I'm not doing things I don't like to do. It was about commerce. I frankly, I hate doing e-commerce. I hate it. I'm bad at it. It's not where my strength is. And it was a whole page about that because it is something that people often need help with. Mm-hmm. And I had that page performed very well for my target keyword. And a couple years ago, I just was like,
see ya, good ranking.
Written the trash, redirected it. And I was 100% happier when I got rid of it. So
that would be maybe the difference between, now we can like shift back to blogging, right? Like that would be the difference between a high ranking blog that's not doing well for you. What do we do there?
A high ranking
blog. I know the answer because you've helped me with that. Like I have, we all have high ranking blogs or blogs that do really well, that get found a lot, but they're either not converting the way you want them to, like people aren't signing up for your newsletter, for example, or getting in touch or whatever, or it's confusing to the reader. Like, I guess you just tweak it. Like, you don't need to get rid of that blog post. You can rewrite it, right? Yeah.
No, I mean, you and I have been talking about this a lot this past month because, like, not to make a plug for our membership, but I'm going to make a plug for our membership. This was sort of the theme of this month's in our membership was, you have if you have content that's sluggish, old, outdated, there's sort of 3 things you can do. One, you can target new keywords, so you can re-optimize it. You can... Oh my goodness, I'm spacing.
Well, no, the second one is rethink it. Like, so think about, for my pricing table, I had to rethink the conversion goal. I didn't really have one. Now I do.
Right. So a lot of times people just forgot or kind of didn't put thought into what their conversion goal is. Kath, do you want to tell them what a conversion goal is? Because I don't think we defined that term.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, again, this is what's so great about blogging, but a conversion goal is like you want your blog to do something. You want the reader to do something when they're on, well, it can be on a page as well, but we're talking about blogs. So when they're on your blog post, you want them to do something. And so the conversion goal is the thing that you want them to do on that blog. And you want it to relate to what your overall, business mission is and everything. So if your conversion goal on your blog is to have them sign up for a newsletter, you want to make sure that the blog is written in a way that the person goes, you know what, I want to get on their newsletter.
Yeah, and there's some things that are, it's not just that you want to make sure you have a sign up form.
Yeah.
There's some tonal stuff you want to get, like, so that it feels engaging. So sometimes it's actually, it sounds kind of funny, but it's actually almost making your language more casual and friendly.
Yeah.
So that someone's like, oh, I would like to get this person's emails in my inbox every month or every week or every day, whatever your schedule is. So that's something to keep in mind as well, is that it's not just making sure, it's not just, so that kind of goes back to the kind of reworking some of that content. But one of the conversion optimizations mistake I see a lot of people make is they do blog posts, the call to action is buy my expensive service. And that frankly doesn't work very well.
It's never worked well for me.
No. Thinking about how to sort of establish a relationship with that reader where you're asking less of them can be really a good way to kind of rethink that blog post. So we've got re-optimize, that's targeting new keywords, which I know you have a piece of content you're going to be doing that with in the future because you have that. Turn your Squarespace website into a virtual assistant. which gets you all kinds of traffic for people looking for to hire a virtual assistant to help with their Squarespace website.
Now, maybe I'm giving them some food for thought once they read it, but it's not. Yeah, it's not.
We're gonna be targeting automations or something like that. Bad. So that's a great, like, so use new keywords. 2, rethinking what your conversion goal is. And then the third one is repurposing, which is actually a little bit of a whole different concept, but it can be, but in context of your blog post, I think for how-tos, which a lot of business owners start with how-tos because they're kind of the easiest. It's like, well, I know how to do this thing. I can get it down on paper. They're so easy.
So easy. Yeah. Yep.
So one of the things you can do, and I advised a client to do this a couple weeks ago, because her most popular blog post is a how-to. She gets, weirdly, unlike most blog posts, it gets comments constantly with basically customer support type questions. Kath, you know this pain.
Yes.
And it's kind of stressful. So I said, well, you've got 2 options. One, you can just delete it and redirect it. Or the other option was take the tutorial video and make it a content upgrade. So if someone wants the video, they're going to have to sign up for your mailing list. And so that's that repurposing. So it's taking something that is a straight old school how-to post and turning it into a content upgrade. And so the content upgrade is lead magnet. Basically, someone says, yes, I want to watch the video tutorial of this, not just read the stuff, fill out the form. Most email marketing tools and form tools will then zip you over to another page where you can watch the video. I have a client who does continuing ed workshops for people in his field, does the same thing, helps build the list for the workshops, proves a little bit of like, hey, this guy's a good teacher.
Yeah.
So, there's lots you can do to kind of take some of those how-tos and actually, again, like, kind of repurpose them into, I mean, you've already made the stuff.
So just reuse it.
Yeah. And it can even be as simple, if you don't have a video, you can also turn that into a nice, like, PDF or a checklist or something like that, because people do appreciate. I know it sounds weird that people still print stuff out. But it can be really helpful to people to have something where they can like check off the steps they need to do.
Yeah.
And again, it gets people on your mailing list so you can start building that relationship. So those are the 3 R's.
And that's an important thing. I know, again, back to, the whole concept of blogging being overwhelming, and we haven't had a lot of those questions today. So that's interesting, but
I think we got a bunch of champs in this
but,
call.
But if you are doing well in other areas, like if you are, on Instagram and you've got people commenting on your posts and you're talking about your topic area, or you're doing Facebook Lives, that needs to go and live on your blog somehow. So figure out how to do that, like transcribe it, rewrite it for the blog. Just start collecting that information and get it on your website, because it will help you in the long term.
Yeah, we have one of our members, she does these really cool podcast interviews with her clients, which is really clever because, one, built-in case study, like interview a client, boom, case study.
I'm going to grab her stuff while you're telling.
And so what she does, but it's also cool because it's giving, in clients' words, what the outcomes are that she achieves. And but then what she's doing now is taking those podcast interviews, having them transcribed. There's services that do this. You don't have to do it. And it's cheap. And cleaning up the interview, adding in and search optimized intro, adding in headers for the different because any conversation sort of flows in a structure. Adding search optimized headers. Then you've got the audio embed, and then all that nice keyword rich natural language content.
It's so good.
And it's just, and you can do that with videos, you can do that with audio, you can do that with, you can take, say you have 5 Instagram posts that are about the same thing. You can take those, rework them, take out the social speak, boom, you've got a great blog post. So there's a lot of stuff you probably have already that you can leverage. And that's one of the things that I really encourage people to do is actually audit what you've got to see what you can turn into really quality blogging content for your business. Because I recognize that we're all the IT manager, the CFO, the CEO, the cleaner, like, let's make that marketing role a little less painful.
I just asked you a question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that I love that Kina transcribes her podcast. I mean, getting all that words on the website, like that's easily 2,000 words. Easily.
So your question is, if I have a serious sounding website, is it okay to sound conversational in your blog?
So I'm very conversational on my website. I'm a former teacher and all of that. So that's my style. But I know, we have clients who are lawyers or consultants and they want to come across as quite, not serious maybe, or not, a little bit more structured in their language on their main pages. Mm-hmm. What about their blog?
I would say whatever the tone is that you take when you talk to people, when you get someone on the phone for that discovery call, that's the tone you want to capture in your blog. And frankly, I would argue on your website as well. Because you don't want to have, because when you have different, when you have a one-on-one experience that's different than what you expect after visiting someone's website and reading their content, that's brand misalignment. And brand misalignment is something that is very, very, very hard to overcome. And it's going to make your sales job much, much harder. So if you tend to be pretty formal in the way you talk to clients, then you want to maintain that in your blog. If you tend to be really casual, you want to maintain that in your blog. If you're funny, I mean, I think I'm hilarious. Not everyone does.
I think you're funny.
But if you're funny when you talk to people, like, especially if you should capture that in your blog. So you don't want to have that misalignment. The misalignment is toxic. And I get really up in arms about this.
Is this another hill?
It is another one of my hills because I see people do this all the time. And I actually see a lot of times they're trying to kind of sound like young, cool, hip. And I'm like, you're my age. Like, I know you're not young, cool, and hip.
It's okay to sound like you.
Sound like you, because that someone has to deal with you, maybe for a month or 2 months or whatever, however long it takes to solve their problem. You don't want someone who's like, oh yeah, this person sounds like they know how to use TikTok. And then you find out that they don't know how to use their Zoom. I mean, that's, sorry. That's I still don't really understand what TikTok is. Okay.
Yes. I'm not on TikTok.
Yeah. So that's kind of my 2 cents. Is you just want to really make sure that whatever you're doing is aligned. And obviously, that's, there's gradations of that. Like, I would say my website. So my website pages are the most formal. The blog is a little more casual. Yeah. Then the actual one-on-ones are more casual than that. Because again, I'm hilarious. And, so it kind of goes, but there's not I'm not using totally new language.
Right.
I would be very put off if someone had a really formal sounding blog and then they're answering their Zoom calls from a party pad.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is, again, especially if people are reading your blog, they're coming because they're looking for help in some way, and to fill it with really formal jargony language would be it would be overwhelming, I think, for people as well. So you want to think about that.
You don't want to frighten them.
No,
I think there is
especially if you're doing stressful topics, you want to make it easy for them to get through the reading and stuff. So,
and I'm thinking about also, a lot of for example, our attorney clients are such a good example because they tend to be pretty niche folks. I mean, most attorneys specialize in, they do employment law for employees only. They do, leasing for restaurants. They tend to get really, if they're a solo practice, they do wills and trusts for young families. I mean, they're really narrow. And the language that they use when they're successful in terms of marketing language on their blogs and also on their websites is really that meeting people where they're at language.
Yeah.
So using terms that are familiar and comfortable with the audience. And but they walk the walk too. Like, it's not just on their website, it's when they're actually talking to them. So they're not like, rattling off words about probate. They're like, this, which means, and then regular people language.
Yeah.
And I think they're a really good example, honestly, of, whereas if you're I love our attorney examples because they're so easy. Like, if you're a construction lawyer, again, totally, like, that is a field, then maybe you can use more like construction lingo because your audience is construction project managers. So that's probably going to be some weird sort of wonky, like I'm going to read that and be like, I don't know what on earth you're talking about. But that construction project manager is going to be like, yeah, like, he knows what a joist is.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, you got to know your audience. So there is room for jargon. Like, I realize sometimes I say no jargon, but actually there are times, depending on what you do and what you sell.
Yeah, sometimes jargon can prove that you absolutely know your stuff.
Yeah.
That's something, and that's why I like the attorney example is, it's, our B2C, our business to consumer lawyers, they very much have to kind of make their stuff be real, natural language. Our B2B lawyers who are actually trying to weed out consumers, they're actually wanting to really prove that they know their stuff and use that, oh, well, I specialize in, electric pylons. This is someone we worked with. Land use abatements.
Yeah, I wouldn't know what that is. I was like, I don't
really know what that is, but that is a thing that is all over their website.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's a good question, Kat. Thank you for adding it.
Yeah, I wanted to know, like, is it okay to sort of slightly have a different vibe on your blog? Not necessarily vibe, but yeah, it all comes back to, like, really.
It is a less formal space, so I do think you can also do more of that, almost thinking through the problem with them, which would be awkward and strange on a website. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So we have a couple more minutes, and if there's any last minute questions, that would be great. If not, I do have one more if I can remember. Oh, what are some common mistakes you've noticed, Sarah, with blogging for business specifically that you think people should know about? Sorry to catch you off guard.
No, you're fine. I'm fine with that. Number one is the I tried and it didn't work phenomenon.
Oh, yeah.
Someone will write 3 blog posts, nothing happens, and they don't ever do it again. So they've not even they've not even built out a content cluster. So I think that there's a couple of things wrong with that. One, that's not how it works. You need to reset your expectations about what working is. I think sometimes people expect to be like, well, I write a blog post and now I'm going to get a client. And that's not how it works.
Right.
You're working on building your authority in Google. You're working on building your trust. You're trying to build an audience, grow your mailing list. It's not, very rarely is it like, thing to thing.
Right.
It's like this. It's like, so that's one thing.
Two, type this question as you're talking. So
not being strategic about, and this is a mistake I have made. So I think Kat, you can, not really being strategic. So building out the content cluster really, really thoughtfully. And we had one of our students, she was saying she actually just went back and basically clustered all of her content. Like, she wrote a pillar post and then connected her pillar post to the other stuff she'd written, and kind of tweaked some stuff so it was all really aligned. She was invisible in Google. She did that, and now she's actually doing well. She's on page 1 with all of those posts. That's really cool.
Wow.
And so so that's that's being really thoughtful in being making sure everything's really connected and dialed in. That's another thing. It's that to me is almost a habit building practice.
Yeah.
But doing that, but neglecting that piece, that strategic piece, I think is a really common mistake. The third is actually outsourcing. I've seen a lot of folks sort of throw out their hands like, well, I can't find time. So they hire, there's a lot of content writing companies out there. And while there are a handful of excellent ones who will learn your industry and your tone, those are also the most expensive. There are a lot of very cheap ones, and the content creates severe brand misalignment. And yes, it brings in traffic, but it does nothing for conversions, and it does nothing for building your reputation and authority. So those are the three biggies. You know, I tried and it didn't work. Not having a plan, and 3, just throwing up your hands and outsourcing. Those are the big mistakes I see.
Yeah. Definitely before outsourcing, look at where else you're speaking. Like even like dig through your old emails. Repurpose. Yeah, repurpose. So if you've been emailing really thoughtful replies to leads, these are steal that language. Like don't steal their specific situation. Like, or don't give away who they are, obviously. But
yeah, I steal from my inbox constantly.
Yeah.
It's a.
That was my question. I think if we have any last questions, we can take one more, and then we have to say goodbye.
So what we'll do, just while we're waiting to see if there's any other questions. So if you haven't hung out with us before on one of these Wednesday lives, what you'll get is towards the end of the day, you'll get an email from us, from me. That has a link to, it just depends on when all this video processing stuff gets done, has a link to the YouTube video replay of this. So I know, some of you have been popping in and out. So you'll have a link to watch the whole thing. Any links that we mentioned will be in there as well. And then we'll also have some, a link to make sure you grab a spot next month. We're going to be talking about, portfolios on your website, which is a really fun topic, and a common question. We answer a lot of questions about portfolios. Yeah. So it'll have all that info in there. So if you just want to refer back to anything, don't worry about grabbing links out of the chat or anything like that. We'll take care of you. And we
have one more question. Why do people read a blog without a business push?
Can you clarify that, Roxanne?
And while you're clarifying, Christy, yes, thank you. It was so fun.
Wait, so is that Roxanne? Roxanne? I know Roxanne.
Why do people read a blog without a business push? What do you mean? Like, why would they read, or what?
Roxanne, if you have a minute, and I'd love to answer this question because I think I know what you're talking about, but I don't want to make assumptions. But I think
stories. Why do people read a blog without a business? Sorry. I'm sorry, Roxanne. I'm not quite understanding that one. But do you know what that means?
So I think that so if it's just something that exists as a
you can just put it in the chat.
Yeah, you can just put it in the chat. Just put it in the chat. Yeah. So I think what she's asking is do people, if she, because I know what I think I know what I think this is the right Roxanne. Roxanne is an artist and puts a lot of little posts her artwork and writes little stories that kind of accompany that, tells the story of the artwork. Mm-hmm. And so why would someone read that? And I think that's I think
if you're an artist, I think people love to read about the process.
That's what I say. It's like the factory tour.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that sounds silly, but I think it's a good analogy. Is there's something really compelling to the factory tour, and the cool thing is that we do see. I always people want to engage with other people. And I think that's more and more the case this year, but it's been the case. I mean, I think that's been growing for a long time. And that's why we see sort of individual artists, individual writers being able to actually build platforms outside of your normal commercial avenues. And it's really cool. It's really, really cool. And so part of that sort of storytelling process, that is also business blogging. And I would actually push back on the idea that it's that it doesn't have a business push, because it's building your name, your reputation, your point of view.
Yeah.
And that's a really, really powerful thing. So that's my 2 cents.
Actually, we can probably cover that in the portfolios as well.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say we should make sure we talk to people about that in the portfolio.
Remember that question for the portfolios.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, it was so great. I'm so glad you all showed up. Thank you so much for your questions and for joining in. Taryn, thank you.
Thank you, Taryn.
Yay.
I think Taryn's been in
morning for us.
These.
Yeah. And we'll be in touch soon with the replay and some of the questions and links.
Thanks, everyone.
Later. Bye-bye.